A good handheld underwater metal detector, which the best at the moment on the market is the Pulse Dive, goes for about 3,500 Rand or $180. I have a homemade belt. You can use a weight belt with a little pouch which is made from thick polyester material. From the belt to the flotation device, which I call a wig, I've connected it with a surfing leash. There's an old torch casing that I use to put the gold rings in, and an easily accessible knife to cut fishing line. If you use an inner tube, it can get a puncture. So I used polystyrene, and the netting, I didn't try not to make it longer than about 40 centimeters, otherwise you will struggle in shallow water. It drags on the ground or gets stuck in the rocks. From any dive shop you can get a diving pouch. You can make your own. Just remember that if you make your pouch big to carry bottles or other items that are large, lead becomes heavy very quickly. I don't use full length flippers, I use WAPs, so it's easier to walk around on the rocks. I've got wetsuit socks to protect my feet and keep them warm. A swimming cap to keep water out of my ears so that there's less ear problems. Suntan lotion and Vaseline to avoid getting rashes. Anti-fog spray, good pair of quality goggles, gloves. Sun and salt destroy your wetsuit, so use silicone spray for all rubber parts and zippers. A bag or bucket to keep your wet things in. A wetsuit, don't forget to fix your wetsuit with wetsuit glue and make sure there's no holes. And then antiseptic and foam bath is much cheaper than wetsuit shampoo. Carry water with you, lots of water to rinse yourself off, a container for your brass and copper and all items that are not gold rings or sinkers. I use double plastic bags. I've found that to be the easiest way to transport sinkers. You can transport up to 25 kilograms in double plastic bags.
Oh yeah, mine's still empty. No, I was down there looking for gold.
Areas in the ocean where you will find different things. You'll get areas where swimmers were and where the rings would have slipped off their fingers. Fishing sinkers, obviously, where people have casted out to catch fish. Other areas we just get a lot of rubbish where the light articles are all over the place. Like this area where I'm busy snorkeling now, a lot of the rocks that are higher up, that are usually sticking out of the water at low tide, they are full of foil and light articles. The slightly deeper areas where there's holes and pools, they have more of the sinkers inside. It is ideal to find areas where you're going to get gold and sinkers. Those are the best. Spring tides are the best time to go metal detecting for sinkers. You can get out further away from the coast, from the beach. Sinkers are not always very far out away from the beach. Sometimes they get washed close to shore in certain areas and they pile up. Sometimes they can even be washed out onto the beach and just under the wet sand. But mostly they are found relatively far away from the beach. On your neap tides or your medium tides, you will be finding a lot more lighter items, foil, screw caps, bottle caps, tin pieces, that kind of trash. But you can also find your gold then. A lot of these pictures you're seeing are all clear water and pretty easy going. It does get difficult, water currents, waves, cloud from the sand, your visibility is almost zero. Many times I actually have my eyes closed and I'm just focusing on what I can hear or what I can feel to get a target. I timed the once video that I watched and it was almost 5 minutes I spent on trying to get one sinker. So it's not always easy. Most of the time your sinkers are in rocky areas, sometimes they're in sandy areas. Bedrock areas usually have smaller sinkers, and sandy areas usually have bigger sinkers. Try and focus on bigger sinkers, because the amount of time that you are spending for your weight ratio is better to go for bigger sinkers than smaller sinkers. 1 kilo size 6 is far better than 1 kilo of size 3, so bigger is better. Also, if you have to walk over a lot of rocks on your way back to your car, carrying 10-20 kilograms of sinkers, that is a bit of a health hazard. Rocks are slippery and you can get hurt. I've always, when I walk on rocks, I go very slowly. It is not worth getting injured. Yeah, I started crawling over the rocks. You're gonna do that sometimes just to get to the next little hole. I noticed from watching my videos that I don't always fine comb an area, and as you can see, I'm moving forward and actually missing a lot of spaces with my detector. I learned from that, from watching the videos. But sometimes you just moving around to try and find a good area where a whole lot of sinkers are collected. Very important metal detecting rule to remember while you're detecting is go slowly. You naturally pick up pace, but you must remind yourself to go slow again. Slowly and slower is better. Things to take note of when you're detecting. Sometimes your target is a small coin, a very tiny coin, a small piece of metal, or even a tiny sinker. And if you have an area where there's a lot of loose stones or rocks or smaller gravel, and you digging and waving away and digging through the stones and the sand, and you just can't seem to get this target, it's most likely a small target, and it always seems to go deeper and deeper and deeper. So that is something just to be aware of. Small tiny sinkers will usually go deeper in the hole. Lighter objects, pull tabs, foil, when you're waving, they sometimes get scooped out of the hole and lie on the rim, on the edges. So that's how you can also tell what kind of object you have before you've even seen it. If it moves, it's light. If you wave vigorously and it stays in one single place, it's most likely heavy and it's a sinker, or maybe gold. Again, smaller objects take time to find. So if you wanting to make money by getting sinkers, then rather go in an area where there's larger sinkers. Like I said before, I do get on average about 100 sinkers per dive. In South Africa, that works out to roughly 250 rand. I think that's about $10-12 per dive, and my diving time is around about 4 hours. Most west coast areas of all the continents, California, Namibia, Cape Town, Australia, Western Australia, South America, Chile, the water is usually cold on the west side of most continents. And for us in Cape Town, where the water is usually cold, in the afternoon, if low tide is late in the afternoon, then during the lunchtime the sun has baked all the rocks, and then as the tide starts coming in, the water moves over the rocks and it actually warms the water up. Goes about 2 or 3 degrees warmer. Now and then you trying to find a sinker and your eyes just can't see it. If you look at this one now in this clip, your eyes just can't recognize it. It's just hidden, or it's being camouflaged into the surrounding rocks. Concerning fishing line and hooks, now fishing line is nothing better than grabbing one and snapping it. Another way to break fishing line is to chafe it on a rock. So take it 2 hands and you saw with it and you chafe the line thinner until it breaks. You pull from one side of your hands. Try and pull with the side of your hands that when it breaks and your hand moves, it doesn't hit against another rock. That's quite important because I've hurt my hand many times like that. If you don't have any rocks or sharp edges around to chafe your line, then use your knife. Hooks usually just rust away, so I just leave the hooks where they are. Any line that you find lying in the water, I avoid following the line to look for a sinker. I leave it just as it is, and I try and avoid that line completely because 90% of the time you get tangled in it. Your sand at the beach, in the water and on the dry sand, moves around a lot. So areas where you used to have a rock bottom, you now maybe have a sand bottom, and vice versa. So one place, or the regular places that I go detecting, I can keep going back to them because the sand moves around and there's more exposed areas to detect. Also, what happens is when you cloud and you fan away into a hole, sometimes it becomes so cloudy and smoky in that area you just want to move away from it so you can just see again, and you've actually left a whole piece of ground open that you didn't detect. So next time you go to that area and that place, you can find a lot more things again. And last and not least, about detecting where there's sand. Don't forget to go over your sandy areas. In the past, I used to avoid the sandy areas because the items will be a bit too deep maybe for my detector. And I've noticed that the more I go over sandy areas, I still find items. As you can see in the clip above, I'm slightly too deep. So when you're too deep, you have to what we call bobbing. You've got to take a breath, you've got to go down, you've got to fan it, you've got to work it, you've got to move away rocks, you've got to go up, get more breath, go down again. It just tires you out. Unfortunately, sometimes the sinkers are only in areas where it is too deep, the tides come in, and you are in that kind of area. It is advisable to avoid such places because it takes a longer time to get a target or to get a sinker. It's quite a funny shaped sinker I got there, but it's much better to go in an average of 75 centimeters. That's your average depth, to try and work in that depth only. Also, on sunny days, the visibility is a lot better. Believe it or not, but when it's cloudy, the visibility is less. Light penetrates water, the visibility is better. Obviously, if the water is murky or cloudy, or what we call pea soup, then your visibility is, it doesn't really matter if it's cloudy or sunny, it's going to be dirty and visibility is going to be less. I think in diving terms they're measured per meter. you can see 7 meters or 5 meters or 15 meters or whatever it is underwater. Right, well, thank you for listening to me through this whole video and for watching. And I think this was a good tutorial on how to find sinkers. If you need any more help, just make a comment below, and yeah, we'll chat soon. See you soon.